listening to the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network, part of Sports Illustrated, giving you daily NFL Draft, Dynasty, and Devy Fantasy Football podcasts.
Class is in session. Welcome into the draft seminar presented by Sports Illustrated's NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network. I am your host, Matt Hicks, the FF Educator, joined as always by my co-host, John Lobb, the Gridiron Scholar. And John, we're getting into a draft Twitter favorite here today. I know there is a lot of hype and a lot of swell behind Rashod Bateman. And I know, John, that you are very much a part of that swell.
Hey, Matt, I've been conducting this train since our Devy seminar last year. I had him in 2019 on my college fantasy football teams. I am proud to be conducting this train. In high school, Bateman was a 4-star recruit. So he walks onto the Minnesota campus. He's a very highly touted player. And he walked on. Tyler Johnson was the alpha male in that passing game. So he had competition to become a star. But as a true freshman, he was a star right away, Matt. He ended up winning Big Ten Freshman of the Week once, and he was the outstanding offensive freshman in the Big Ten in 2018. Just started right away. So if you're a breakout monster and you love those young breakout players, Rashod Bateman's going to pop right away as a true freshman. Then last year was 2019, was just magical. He was first team all Big Ten, 60 receptions, 1,219 yards, and 11 touchdowns. This young man is 6'2", 210 pounds, Matt. He averaged 20.3 yards per catch in 2019. He is motoring down the field. He was named the Big Ten's Richter Howard Receiver of the Year. He was a Biletnikoff Award finalist, AP third-team All-American, and the Bronco Nagurski Award for the Minnesota team MVP. And remember, that was a team with Tyler Johnson, who we saw how good he was with Tampa Bay. He flashed at moments this year for the Buccaneers. So he exceeded with another great player on the roster. Now, in 2020, it was a challenging season for all of America, including Bateman. The Big Ten wasn't sure they were going to play. They delayed the start of the season, and they kicked off later than some of the other conferences. And at one point, Bateman actually opted out. When the Big Ten did announce they were going to play, he opted back in. So luckily, we were able to see him on the field. But he wasn't as dominant. He was all Big Ten third team in 2020. But it was a challenging season for him. The Gophers weren't as good as they were the year before, Matt. But he did play well enough. And he leaves campus with numerous school records. Sophomore receiving yards, sophomore receiving touchdowns. As a freshman, 51 catches. Freshman receiving yards, 704. All school records. He also, at Minnesota TCF Bank Stadium record, he has the record with 203 yards receiving versus Penn State. And in every game on campus, Bateman caught at least one pass since arriving on campus. I am a big Bateman fan. He's in my top 3 wide receivers in this class. I love him, Matt. What does the film say when you break it down?
Yeah, he's a really interesting film review for me, John. And I think for myself and probably most folks, the breakdown has to start with focusing in on his route running ability. Now, I did give him an 86 here in route running ability. I think he's got a really good first step. I think it gives him good leverage against defensive backs. He sells routes well with his feet, and he moves in and out of his breaks very well. He controls his body well, and he's not afraid to get physical, John. He knows how to break through getting jammed up at the line of scrimmage, but also how to go up and get the ball and use his hands well. Now, I will say in terms of route running, the one concerning area, and the reason I have him as an 86, where some folks might have him higher, I don't love his separation downfield. I think that is something that's going to slow down his translation to the NFL. But when he's in that contested catch situation, John, 85 on my scale. He
wins.
goes up, he gets the ball, he has a good vertical ability, he has good athleticism that helps, helps him go up and get the ball. He's got a huge catch radius. He extends his body very well, and he uses his length very well. So there's a lot to like there when it comes to actually throwing up that jump ball. And it's one of the reasons from a highlight perspective, he really jumps out at a lot of folks. Now, his athleticism, John, I gave him an 84. Like I mentioned, his vertical ability, I think he's a really good fluid player as well, both before and after the catch. And he's not going to be the fastest guy, but I think he has really good straight line acceleration. Oftentimes he's placed on the boundary there for Minnesota. I think he's a lot more comfortable when he is on the boundary as opposed to when he got moved inside. But like I mentioned earlier, he gets off the line of scrimmage quickly, and he's quicker than he is fast per se. But that quickness can really come in handy when it comes to translation to the NFL. But I think we've talked about his tape enough, John. Let's actually go ahead and flip on some of it.
I can't wait. I like watching Rashod Bateman.
All right, here we go here. We're going to start it off against Purdue, and you see that ability to work with the ball after the catch. By the way, John, switching to number 0 in his final year, that's tough. I absolutely love that.
That was a nice catch. He turned around and readjusted and caught that. He has very good body control with his hands.
Yeah, absolutely. His handwork and body control is consistently on display. You could see it there against Michigan. And here against Iowa, you're going to see a little bit of that contact balance, a little bit of that ability to run after the catch here. Another kind of underthrown ball there, but he comes back to it and he's aggressive to get to it.
Absolutely. And if you watch enough film, he runs out of the X, the Y, the slot, and he runs a diverse route tree. I'm really impressed with how PJ Fleck used him all over the formation, and he excelled at almost all those positions, Matt.
So right here, John, you're going to see his ability to react to that. That ball was definitely overthrown a little bit too much on it by Tanner Morgan, but he gets it in the back of the end zone. And he kind of snags this ball out of thin air here, stays on his feet, and he has the ability to keep moving on downfield.
Absolutely. You know, Matt, when I'm watching him, I'm going to put him in the same bucket. Cortland Sutton, Juju Smith-Schuster, and why can't I think of my third? Oh, Tyler Boyd. He's an amalgamation of those three players. He's better than Boyd, not as a prospect. Not sure that he's as good as Juju as a prospect. And Cortland Sutton was a special athlete. But he's in that bucket with those players. I'm really confident he's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL.
I think that's a really good spot to put him in there, somewhere between Boyd and Juju. And depending on how you feel about him, you might be on one side or the other on him. But either way, John, there's a lot to like in his film. There's a lot that pops out and grabs you when you flip on some of his highlight reels. But let's talk about the production metrics and how they fit into what you're looking for your NFL prospects.
He does very well when I pop him in my model. First thing, 6'2", 210 pounds. You know, Matt, I've said it before. I like my big receivers. Part of the thing when I see the Cortland Sutton and the Juju Smith with the size. But his career numbers are very good. Let's say he only played 2.5 years because he did miss a lot of time. And if they had a full season in the Big Ten, he would have had probably at least 5 more games under his belt. So you look, 147 receptions. I like 150. He's so close, I can't be picky. 2,395 career yards. But Matt, since he started as a true freshman, on 147 receptions, he's averaged 16.3 yards per catch. He's very good. Now, it's interesting because he'll get yards with the yak, and he gets yards on deep patterns. So he gets those yards. I mean, he's very good at it. 19 career touchdowns. And despite the challenges of this year, you look at his catch percentage, 64%, and his team aerial dominator, 34%. Matt, you mentioned it. He wins those one-on-one battles. When you see him use his size and his strength, he comes down with the ball. And I think there's 2 things that I'm impressed when I watch his film. He employs more double moves than you think. So he does have some savvy and intelligence to his route running. And he gets in and out of his breaks really well. If he gets with the right quarterback and the right system, they move him around. They give him opportunities where he's a mismatch one-on-one. I think he has a really high floor. Tyler Boyd floor with the ceiling of Juju Smith 2 years ago with Pittsburgh when he was an All-Pro. I really like this young man. He's in my top 3 wide receivers.
There you go. Never a bad place to be. You can go ahead and put those pencils down because this session is over. We appreciate you listening to this episode of the Draft Seminar presented by Sports Illustrated's NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to get this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you have not already. And please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review if you're listening on your favorite podcast provider. Thanks.